Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Pinot with Phoenix for November 2025. The curtain has fallen on another work year for me, and we're just about to get to the busiest part of the content creation year. Before we do though, let's recap a very busy November, and first up, we're going to start off with the very first game of the month, as we started off with Super Boss Monster by Brotherwise Games. Super Boss Monster has you building a dungeon, playing as a boss monster, and you're trying to lure the heroes there to it so you can ultimately destroy them and recover their souls. I really enjoy this one, even if the solo mode has been very brutal. I did play it at Gen Con earlier this year as well with my friend and somebody else that we met there, and still had a lot of fun with it. It does have a bit of randomness to it though, so you will want to be aware of that when you get into this game, because it can be frustrating to go through and not have the cards you need pop up. But I enjoy it when I need something quick, and we'll probably see it on the channel in the future. Next up, we move to the Baseball Diamond as we played Inside Pitch Baseball by Inside Sports Games. For this one, we went to a 2011 matchup as the New York Yankees were playing the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners actually dominated this game with an 11-0 victory, helped by a complete game 2-hit shutout by Felix Hernandez and 4 errors by Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez, as they had a brutal time of it. And the thing is, this game of Inside Pitch actually came up as I was starting to figure out, okay, I actually don't like APA Baseball. I was bouncing off of it pretty hard. Because I think it was one of the first videos I did in the off season. Let's see. Nope, I don't have the. I think it was one of the first games that I did in the off season. Jester was just watching my unboxing of Dice Throne. Yeah, and thanks again for doing the video. I know you've got so many games out there, so I'm always glad when somebody takes a minute and kind of gives me a hand with a decision I'm looking at making. Anywho, back to Inside Pitch. So it was one of the first games I did. Actually, both APA Baseball and Inside Pitch were some of the first games I did in the off season, coming out of the 2009-10 hockey season replay last month. But I got to a point with APA Baseball in particular where I was like, okay, I don't think I'm liking this game, because basic to me seemed like it was too simple. Where yes, it's the speedy game, but it didn't work for me. It didn't help really tell that story. It really didn't help tell the story of the game. The Paul Marino boards kind of frustrated me a little bit in terms of that supposing to be the middle ground. The master game, for the 2 innings that I played the master game, it actually kind of scared the hell out of me more than a little bit. Plus, I was worried that with all the math that was going in there, it would constantly be breaking immersion to check charts and be like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing here? So I ended up getting intimidated, and in fact, in the 9th inning in my test game in APA, when I was supposed to go back to the master game again, I ended up going back to basic. So I'm kind of rambling on that, but coming back to Inside Pitch, the reason that caught my attention again was, I think that was toward the tail end of RJL's 1999 season replay, where he was using the new base running charts for Inside Pitch before Inside Pitch Advanced finally dropped. And it was the base running charts that those new base running charts that really made me want to try Cards and Dice Inside Pitch again. I never really warmed up to PC Inside Pitch. Actually, I never picked up any seasons for it. I did enjoy Inside Pitch using those new base running charts. They really helped solve a lot of the headaches I was running, because it felt like for me at least, I was trying to do advanced calculus with making the base running work for normal Inside Pitch. So having the charts help streamline everything was actually very helpful. And I am using it as part of my APA Baseball purge as I get my last seasons out of the collection and into a box that's actually going to be Jester bound in the next couple of weeks. So I do owe you an email back on how we want to finalize that trade, Jester. So I'll probably get that off to you once I sign off here. Anyway, that's it for Inside Pitch. Now let's go into we actually started remembering that, okay, It's actually New Game November, so let's play something new on the channel. We played Stalingrad Advance to the Volga by Revolution Games. This one, Inside Pitch is a good game, solid game. More you play, the easier it gets. Yeah, I'm finding that, and the new base running charts, like I said, really helped me out with that by taking probably the biggest headache in that game out of it for me, that being the base running. Anywho, back to Stalingrad. Just like the name sounds, we are actually in control of the Germans. Excuse me, we're in control of the Germans in this one, as we're trying to advance into Stalingrad and take control of it from the Soviets. It ended up being a very brutal game. I just couldn't make the dice rolls work for me, and the Soviets held Stalingrad very easily. But I definitely started having problems toward the end of the game, where I normally have pretty small hands, but even the chits in there ended up being actually a little bit too small even for me. The dice weren't a big problem, even though they're a smaller size. It was going to be easy enough if I liked the game to just swap in bigger dice and not have to deal with it that way. But there was just too much about Advance to the Volga that I really didn't like. So that's another game that's going to be leaving my collection in the near future. So next up on the channel, we had an old favorite as we played the Guild of Merchant Explorers by AEG. This I decided to do a couple tests on BGA. Actually, I played both of these games on BGA. I really enjoy this one. The first one was a 119 pointer, and it's really good for a quick fix. And as a test on using Restream, which you've been seeing a lot more of as Jester and I have been going through Christmas and Arkham this year, but I'll have more on that toward the end of the gameplay recap section. The Restream test on BGA went very well. I don't remember what my score is for that game, or what my score was for that game, but I did enjoy it, and I was more interested in the technical test for Guild of Merchant Explorers than I was in necessarily the score, but I think the score still went pretty well, as I remember correctly. That's it for Guild of Merchant Explorers, though. That one has you exploring a distant land, which I really enjoy. Again, quick game. Next game we played was actually a brand new tennis game on the channel, the first ever tennis game I played on the channel, as I played Inside Volley Tennis by Inside Sports Games. Just like you can guess, it's a tennis simulator. This was actually a point-by-point game. The way it works is you roll on a matrix just like you would in Inside Pitch to get your result. You also have to roll a D100 to see who controls the action, whether it's whoever's serving on the first serve, the returner on a first return, or same thing on the second returns. So you get the control of, then you consult the appropriate matrix to get the result. I enjoyed Inside Volley Tennis surprisingly, but to me, it felt like something was missing from it. I don't know. You hear me talk pretty much all the time about narrative in these games, but it felt like something was missing in Inside Volley Tennis. Now, I have made fairly liberal use of the play sale that is currently going on, and one of the games I picked up from that is Let's Play Tennis. I won't sugarcoat that. We'll see if that does what I want it to for tennis. And Inside Volley Tennis is also a fairly quick playing game. The problem is I was taking out Roger Federer against Novak Djokovic from 2009, and the way that was going, it should have been back and forth. It should have been like edge of your seat action, but I don't know if it was just tennis or just inside volley in particular, or it could have been a first time because I think it was on a Monday night and I was fairly burned out from work that day, where I just ended up being like, I don't know. Something just felt like it was missing to me there. But something to consider. I may put that on the channel moving forward because we've got a lot of content coming in the next month. So definitely food for thought there. Anyway, that's it for Inside Volley Tennis. Our next new game, as we actually remembered it was New Game November, was American Tank Ace by Compass Games. This is another Gregory Smith design, and it's similar to other games by Greg Smith, like the Hunters series, the Interceptor Ace, Night Fighter Ace, America Bomber, stuff like that. This time you're in control of a tank, and you're trying to go through your missions. This first mission was fairly rough. that's to be expected. I've heard that you're going to die and die a lot in American Tank Ace. Our tank got absolutely obliterated in that first mission. We did manage to survive it, but we were badly wounded. I think we started that one in June 1944, so we've still got probably D-Day coming up in that game at some point. So that'll do it for American Tank Ace. Next up was another new game that I had big plans for, and it was one that my recommendation engine on ChatGPT was screaming, hey, this is a really good game, you should give it a try. So I did give it a try in Folklore the Affliction by Greenbrier Games. This one has you battling the Affliction in a fantasy universe. I forget what the universe is actually called. It's not something I'm going to retain, though, but we'll get into that a little bit. So Folklore, to me, ended up being a lot of maintenance. Essentially, there was a lot of upkeep. It was a sprawling mess, essentially. And if you're a regular on the channel, you know that anytime I use those two words together, sprawling mess, it is never a good thing. And that holds true. And that holds true here as well. From a narrative perspective, it actually did seem like it was going well, but I liked the story it was trying to tell. But just the first mission wiping me completely out, and well, all but wiping me completely out, was not going to be something I was going to end very well. So this is another game that I think is heading for the trade pile. In fact, I'm getting my Noble Knight run together for sometime next week, I'm thinking. But we'll see how all of that plays out. Actually, I need that open because that's got my script on here, along with some of my notes. Anyway, that's it for Folklore the Affliction. Next up, we did a little bit of wrestling stress testing. As our next game was our first wrestling test, as we played Legends of Wrestling by, who is this by? Phil Singer Games is who Legends of Wrestling is by. As you can probably guess, it's a wrestling simulator. And as some of the stuff was starting to fall by the wayside, I was starting to get warm to the idea of maybe doing a wrestling federation on the channel. But the thing is, I know that in order to do the wrestling federation the way I want it to, this isn't something I'm going to want to or be able to half-ass. It's something I'm going to want to do right. And there are certain things I know I want to be able to do in a wrestling federation. The way Legends of Wrestling works is you take your two wrestlers, you roll two different colored dice. You'll find an aggressor first. You'll roll on the aggressor to get the move that they're doing. Then you'll roll on the defender to see what kind of defense they're taking. So you may end up getting somebody dazed, and then you roll again on the attacker's level 2 offense. Or maybe the defending wrestler reverses, so you roll offense on, say, his level 1 or whatever. The engine itself actually flowed pretty well for Legends of Wrestling. The problem is, it's not just the in-ring that would go into a wrestling federation. There's a lot of stuff that also goes back into it. There are other stipulations that would go into it. You'd need to have some kind of promo segments, backstage promos, in-ring, maybe some sit-downs, what have you. I was actually having ChatGPT a few weeks ago generate some tables for promos that I could use in a wrestling federation. The problem is with Legends of Wrestling, I feel like there's a lot that needs to be bolted onto it. And another thing I didn't like about Legends of Wrestling is it doesn't really capture the fatigue aspect very well, where you don't really get the sense of a wrestler weakening throughout the match. Where the only thing you really get from that is a wrestler hits their finisher, and all of a sudden you got a +2 on the pin roll after you roll for a pin. So it's like, okay, you could have a match go for 15, 20, 25 minutes, but the pin roll is going to be the same number every time. That just didn't really sit that didn't really sit right with me. And I don't think either of the other engines, well, I take that back. One engine actually did capture that feeling very well, but I'm getting ahead of myself on that. So yeah, this is one. So Legends of Wrestling is an engine that I would have to bolt a lot on in order to make it work as a federation. That's it for Legends of Wrestling. Next up, we had another play game on the channel. Actually, the first of quite a few play games that were on the channel this month, as we played Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling by Play Games, another wrestling simulator. This one's a little bit different in that it uses fictional wrestlers, but you can usually go pretty well you can usually guess pretty well at what Keith Avalone at Play Games was going for with some of these wrestlers. It actually uses a deck of cards rather than, well, it does use dice in a few occasions, but it mostly uses a deck of cards to move the action along. I did a few videos of Face to the Mat where I did a couple different sets of stress testing, and I'm going to do at least one more set of stress testing before I decide what I'm doing with the Wrestling Federation idea. But I really liked Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling. It's got a lot of narrative, and there didn't feel like there was as much bolting on as I would need to do certainly with Legends of Wrestling if I was to launch a Wrestling Federation around Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling. It was another one that didn't really capture the fatigue all that well, where it's definitely a race down to the points, if that makes sense. But I think of the engines I stress tested, this was the one I liked the best. And if I launch a Wrestling Federation on the channel, Face to the Mat is going to be the engine I use for it. So that's it for Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling. Next up, we went back to Compass Games once again, and back to the Eastern Front of World War II, as we played Ostkrieg by Compass Games. This one's a Greg Smith design, where you're using cards to drive the action around. It does kind of might give off some Combat Commander vibes, but the reason it doesn't, to me at least, and this is to me, mind you, is because you've got everything in your hand at the start you take everything in your hand at the start for the year, you play out your cards, figuring out how you want to sequence everything, and then you buy everything. You buy the cards that you want back when you move to the next year. So all of a sudden, you still have to make the decisions on what you want to do with your cards and which ones you think you need to buy back. But it doesn't feel as restrictive to me, at least as Combat Commander does, in my opinion. And I know Jester's a huge fan of Combat Commander, but I think you also know my feelings on Combat Commander and why I bounced off of it a little bit. But I did really like Ostkrieg, though. Anyway, that's it for Ostkrieg. Next up, we went to our last wrestling engine as we played TV Pro Wrestling 2 by Downey Games. Again, wrestling simulator. More like Legends of Wrestling, in that Downey actually uses the real wrestlers in its engine. The problem is, this one was actually very clunky, and I ended up junking it completely. In fact, you guys might remember back at the end of that stream, where as I was cleaning up, I was actually throwing my stuff that I printed out for TV Pro Wrestling 2. I actually threw a lot of that stuff in the garbage as I was cleaning up, and Jester understands my points, so we're not going to talk anymore about Combat Commander on that. Back to TV Pro Wrestling 2, though. The one thing I did like about that TV Pro Wrestling 2 did better than either Legends of Wrestling or Face to the Mat was TV Pro Wrestling 2 actually did capture the fatigue very well. So as you're going through the match and getting the moves done and getting through all the moves, you actually do feel how the wrestlers are getting weaker as the match goes on, and they're getting easier to defeat. Where every time you go through their maximum health, you essentially add their pin and submission modifiers. So as the match goes longer and longer, it becomes easier and easier to defeat the wrestlers. So it did capture that aspect very well. But this also would have needed a fair amount of bolting on as well in order to be warm to be used as part of a wrestling federation. So going to take a quick drink here before we talk about our next game. Ooh. Next game we had on the channel was Disney Animated by Funko Games. This one is the way I describe Disney Animated is it's basically Ark Nova but cooperative. The goal in this one is to get some of the most famous movies in the Disney universe made. There's Fantasia, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Aladdin, Alice in Wonderland, and 101 Dalmatians in the box. I actually played this 2 more times in addition to on the channel because I went down to Illinois, and Dave's Tabletop Gaming, who you might have seen on a regular basis on the channel, went down to his neck of the woods earlier this month toward the end of it, and I got to play it a couple more times there. I really enjoy this game, and in my playthroughs on the month, I went 2 and 2. On the channel, Snow White and 101 Dalmatians got made in the first ever playthrough I did on the channel, but Snow White and Aladdin did not get made, and they would have gotten made if I would have been paying a little more attention to getting everything I needed for that. But that's on my fault. And that's my fault. Still really enjoy the game, though. I could definitely see it coming out when I need a little bit more of a thinky puzzle, and I'm not in the mood to sprawl everything out like Ark Nova. So that's it for Disney Animated. Next up, we got into another familiar deck building game on the channel as we played G.I. Joe, the deck building game by Renegade Studios. This one is a deck builder, as you can guess, set in the G.I. Joe universe. And your goal is to clear the missions in the story. This one did not go well for me because we ended up getting brutalized by a Baroness who just never seemed to want to go away. Every time we get rid of her, there's another card that immediately brings her back out again. So I think we ended up having Baroness on the board probably 3 times in that game. Finally, we just ended up having Cobra advance all the way to the top of the track, and we lost the game. I do still enjoy it, though, and it'll probably come out again at some point. I don't know if I'm going to be expanding, if I'm going to get any expansions for it or not, but we'll see about that. Anyway, we had another restream test as we turned to an old favorite, Age of Innovation by Furland Spiel. This is almost like a new Terra Mystica. Well, this is the newest of the Terra Mystica games. I do really enjoy it, and we barely lost this one. I think it was like 120 to 117. It was a close game, I know that. But it was another restream test, and that one actually seemed to go pretty well, too. So I definitely see doing more with Age of Innovation on the channel. You've not seen the last of that one on the channel. That'll do it for Age of Innovation, though. Next week, we went back to the Revolution games again. This time we went out to the Far East as we played Manila, The Savage Streets 1945 by Revolution Games. This one, take everything I said about Stalingrad, advance to the Volga, advance it over to Manila, move it over to Manila, and you're playing the United States against the Japanese. This was another brutal one, and I think I started having a lot of the same problems that I had with Stalingrad. I don't know where I heard it, but I vaguely remember hearing something about Manila maybe not being the easier of the games, maybe being the better. That's what I heard. But I think I heard something about if you have the choice between the two to get Manila over Stalingrad, and you have to get one of them, so all of that. I'm kind of rambling on that. Anyway, take a lot of the same problems I had with Stalingrad, move them over to Manila, and that's kind of my feeling on that game. That one is also going to be leaving the collection. So I'm not going to rehash everything I talked about Stalingrad, since a lot of those same points apply to Manila. Anyway, the game that I played not the game I played the most on the channel. Second most I played on the channel because I was doing some stress testing with it was History Maker Golf by Play Games Again. This one, again, golf simulator. Honestly, probably my favorite golf simulator of the bunch, and I've played 4 or 5 of them now. But I really like, again, the narrative aspect of this. I really wanted to find a mode of same game and same system. Yeah, between Stalingrad and Manila, same game, same system. Yeah. So History Maker Golf, I really wanted to make this work as part of the Wide World of Sports project that I was starting to brainstorm on last month, where it would be a combat sport of some kind on Friday, then ideally racing on Saturday, and we'll talk about Red, White, and Blue Racing a little bit later because I did play that as well, and then golf on Sunday. The original idea I had was to do a full tournament, something like the Masters, PGA Tour, something like that. That ended up being an absolutely terrible idea, especially at the first 12 golfers. So I said, okay, let's try going to a 9 golfer, or try going to a 4 golfer format, taking them through a round of golf. That ended up breaking up into 2-part videos, breaking into a 2-part video, ended up taking about 2 hours to go through. So I think at that point, the idea came up of, okay, let's try doing 2 golfers in match play, and doing so when golf comes up as part of the Wide World of Sports, it would be a match play tournament essentially. And it definitely came out. I definitely came out of that feeling like match play was absolutely the way to play History Maker Golf and feature that on the channel. So when Wide World of Sports comes up as a full sports project, it'll be History Maker Golf will be part of it using match play. Plus, the way Match Play played, I could easily see if I want to break it out and make it a standalone project, I could make the Match Play tournament a whole lot bigger. For a Wide World of Sports project over the space of 4 months, maybe it would be a 16 golfer tournament. But if I wanted to break it out and make it its own project, I could maybe expand that out to, say, a 68 golfer tournament over the course of about 2 to 3 months. Since I don't normally play on Tuesdays, but I may do some testing with that in the 2001 season replay. So yeah, Match Play will be what we play, what History Maker Golf will be during Wide World of Sports. Next game we had was another deck builder in the G.I. Joe vein, as this time we played Transformers, the deck building game, also by Renegade Studios. Basically, it's very similar to G.I. Joe, but instead you're playing as the Autobots and Transformers taking on the Decepticons. This one is actually kind of unique in that you actually move around a grid, and whatever card you're at in the grid, I think it's called the Matrix officially, that's what you're able to buy. So you don't have a set aside market. You can move around the board. You might reveal an enemy that you have to take out. And I actually thought among deck builders that was a very unique mechanic, and I could see exploring more with that on the channel as well. I know there's a lot I'm saying I could see exploring on the channel, but I'm trying. But again, I do also mention where games aren't really a hit with me, like the aforementioned Manila and Stalingrad games. I do see doing more with Transformers on the channel. But that's it for Transformers. Next up, we actually went to a war game. We actually had a war game and another new game November, as we played Castle Litter by DVG. This is one of the weirdest battles in World War II, where you had French POWs, a U.S. infantry company, a former, I think it was Wehrmacht officer, and who else? Some French prisoners, I think, fighting the SS, trying to take over a castle in, what is it, Austria, Belgium, somewhere in Europe. Anywho, this one we ended up fighting the SS to a standstill, and this was the first game of the Valiant Defense series that I played, and I might try to track down the other two, those being Soldiers in Postmen's Uniforms, and what's the other one? Pavlov's House. That's the other one. I knew I was thinking of it, but I just couldn't figure out what the game was. I'm surprised how much I enjoyed that one too, especially again with the narrative focus that it was really helping to tell. You do have to be careful though in making sure you lay out enough suppression fire to be able to cover everything, because we had a few times there where it was getting very dicey in terms of, are we actually going to be able to survive this? We very nearly didn't survive it a few times. We almost had the SS storm the building and overwhelm us. Fortunately, we were able to avert disaster on that quite a few times. But that's it for Castle Litter. Next up, we had a yearly Christmas tradition as Christmas in Arkham started with the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. Fate of the Elder Gods by Greater Than Games is a game set in the Cthulhu mythos where it's actually a nice twist. You actually play as the Ancient Ones. They call them Elder Gods, but Elder God, Ancient One, 6 of one, half dozen of the other to me. I call them Ancient Ones because that's how I've learned them in the Cthulhu mythos. Anywho, your goal in this game is to get your Ancient Ones summoned. And the idea here is Jester and I have been going through the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament in Christmas in Arkham, where there were 9 Ancient Ones who crossed all 4 games. So we split them up into 3 groups of 3 Ancient Ones and went through the tournament. And our winner from yesterday's video ended up being Shubni Gudath, the Black Goat of the Woods. She was burning for a rematch from 2022, where she lost Christmas in Arkham that year by a final score of 3-0. Now, you might have heard me talking a little bit earlier in the Dice Throne unboxing that I did, if you watched that before tuning in here, about maybe looking for a new game for the tournament that I use to determine my Christmas and Arkham opponent. A lot of that's been coming from Jester, actually, and I've been open to feedback on that, where it's been a bit of a slog to get through that Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. And I can definitely see where he's coming from on it being a slog. The thing is, I wanted to make sure there was really no other game that did what I needed at the time, where I didn't just want to put, and he and I have talked about this in the green room after each of those streams, where I was never warm to the idea of pointing at an ancient one and saying, yeah, you're the one I'm going to take on. I did that the first time I ran Christmas in Arkham for Ithaca, and the first time I ran the Summer of Lovecraft for Nyarlathotep, only because I didn't have any kind of history established, and I didn't have a tool at the time to help me determine, yeah, this is the opponent that we're going to face for the campaign. Plus, we needed to get the history in there. But I am definitely exploring other games I can use to maybe determine an opponent for Christmas in Arkham, potentially for the Summer of Lovecraft as well. But for the Summer of Lovecraft, I've got Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu that I use to determine my opponent for that campaign. And the way I do it there is the last ancient one to get awakened in Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu is the one that we face in the Summer of Lovecraft. Whereas in Christmas in Arkham, I tend to want a more competitive game, because I think a competitive game is going to do the job there. The thing is with some of those games, mechanically they'll do the job, but thematically they're a disaster. So I'm going to have to bolt on some kind of Lovecraftian theme, whether it's via house rules or something, or if I find the perfect Lovecraftian game to do it. Because Fate of the Elder Gods is hardly a perfect game. It's fine for what it does at the time, it's fine for what it does, and it was the game I needed at that time. But now I've got new tools available to me now that I've got more experience in the tabletop hobby, where now I can look at a game and be like, okay, I can use this game for this purpose. I just need to bolt on this, and this to make it work. I've got a few other games coming in from the play sale that I might explore for that purpose. But I think this is probably the last year I'm going to run the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament to determine my opponent for Christmas in Arkham. Taking another drink before we continue. The next game that we played on the channel was America Bomber, Evil Queen of the Skies by Compass Games. Another Gregory Smith design. This one's set in an alternate history of World War II Europe, where the Germans have actually won the war, and they're turning their attention to the United States via a forward base from Portugal in the Azores Island. You think it's a wise decision, probably that this is the last year I'm running the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. But like I said, there's a theme disconnect there that I'm going to need to figure out how I want to solve that. Anywho, where were we? Oh yes, America Bomber, Evil Queen of the Skies. So for this one, like I said, it's an alternate history of Europe, where we're in the America Bomber. There's also Defending America, Intercepting the America Bombers, also by Compass Games. That just has you in the American Interceptors. You're trying to intercept the German America Bombers. You think I'll be happier with the outcome. We'll see about that once I figure out what arrow in the quiver I want to go to determine the opponent for Christmas in Arkham and or the Summer of Lovecraft. Anyway, back to America Bomber again. Our mission this time was we were trying to drop leaflets over Chicago. We ultimately managed to drop the leaflets, but our bomber ended up being Swiss cheese. I think we made it home by the power of duct tape happy thoughts, and good intentions. But yeah, where the bomber's going to be a write-off, we're ultimately going to end up with a new bomber by the time we go out, which will probably be fairly soon in the month, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. Anyway, next game we had on the channel was Cartographers with another couple of BGA tests. This one has you set in the role-player universe. You're a map maker at this point for Queen Gimax, I think is her name, or something like that. Anyway, we did absolutely horrendous in the two games in terms of the score, but to the technical stuff, everything worked out very well on that front. So, still enjoy the game. Very easy to do play-alongs with these. That's it for Cartographers, though. Next up, we had our last new game to the channel, believe it or not, as we played Valkyrie, a Black Orchestra game by Tabletop Tycoon. As you might guess from it being a Black Orchestra game, the goal of this one is to try to assassinate Hitler once again, with Himmler and Goebbels harassing you at every turn. It's actually supposed to be a quicker playing game. It'll probably get quicker as I get more experience with it, but it wasn't quicker given that this was my first time through. We had Klaus von Stauffenberg and Ludwig Beck out for this one, We actually didn't end up taking out Hitler in this game, but I do see myself doing more with this on the channel. Again, being a faster Black Orchestra game, I could see myself doing more with this on the channel. So that's it for Valkyrie. Next up, I mentioned Red, White, and Blue Racing earlier by Play Games. I think that is is that only the second Play game I played this? No. I played Face to the Mat as well. So 3 different Play games this month. But as you might guess from the racing part, this is a racing simulator. We went out to New Hampshire Motor Speedway for a race in this one. I forget who, I think Reagan Smith, one of our TV drivers, ended up taking the checkered flag. But I did really enjoy this game as well. Normally I don't go for racing, but this is one that I really do enjoy, especially watching the story of the race unfold and seeing who can take the checkered flag. This is another game that I'm looking at using to determine the opponent for Christmas in Arkham. But this is one that's going to take a fair amount of bolting on in terms of bringing the ancient ones into it somehow. Maybe there's 43 drivers in a race. There's 11 ancient ones that cross all 3 games in the Arkham Horror files. So I figure if I bring the number of drivers up to 44 for those races, I can have each ancient one with 4 drivers on a team. So they'd all get a passive ability from whatever ancient one's sponsoring them, and then an active ability that they can activate, say, at the cost of a blue chip. I think that's what I've been brainstorming with ChatGPT on, trying to bolt stuff on. So definitely an option there to be explored as well in terms of what I want to do to determine my opponent for Christmas in Arkham. Speaking of Christmas in Arkham, the last game on the month was, of course, not a new game, but it was also part 1 of the campaign, as Jester and I were playing Eldritch Horror by Fantasy Flight. Of course, by virtue of her victory in the Christmas and the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament, we took on Shubni Gudath in Eldritch Horror. We actually managed to win that game, win our first game. Unfortunately, it cost us Carol and Fern toward the end of that one, where she ended up getting devoured. But we won Eldritch Horror, so next week I will be starting Arkham Horror 2nd Edition with an extra item, and I'll roll for that at the start. I'll roll for that at the start of the game in Arkham 2nd Edition when I'm setting everything up. So we'll see that. Of course, I will be minus a Jester in that video. I've got some contacts out in TAC-UP for a potential substitute, so stay tuned for that on the channel over the course of the week. Anyway, we are just about 40 minutes into the video, and we're just now getting to Mystical Munchies. It's probably going to be more, I'm just going to warn you guys right now, it's probably going to be more of the same, and even more when we get into December's Advent of the Phoenix. Did I find anyone to play? I haven't gotten a response on TAC-UP yet. The only thing I got so far, which I didn't mind too much, was actually a friend request from Cardboard Commander that I did ultimately accept. But so far, haven't found anybody yet. If I don't, world won't end. I'll just play it solo. Not the first time, won't be the last. Anyway, on to Mystical Munchies. I'll keep an eye on that post as time goes on. Anyway, now we're on to Mystical Munchies. For the month of November, we were cooking out of the unofficial Harry Potter cookbook, so let's talk about those recipes for the month. For the appetizer, we made Irish soda bread. The bread actually tasted good when it was all done, and I would have considered using it for sandwiches if I would have remembered to put it in a rectangular pan instead of the circular one like the recipe called for. As it is, I was trying to put jam and stuff on it, but just didn't work very well. The side was the hot rolls. The burgers were actually very dense. The rolls were actually very dense, and I don't think they would have kept as leftovers at all. So, yeah, not happy with that recipe. The entree was the Paddington burgers. They ended up being very rare, and I think a lot of that was due to how big the burgers were. And they probably would have turned out better also if I would have used an actual grill, like my Foreman grill, which I started using toward the end of when I was making the rest of the burgers and doing everything off camera. The drink, which I made early, because again of the trip down to Illinois earlier this month, was the hot chocolate out of there. The recipe had both hot chocolate and coffee in it. I like hot chocolate. I never got the taste of coffee. So when the two came together, the coffee taste ended up winning, and this one didn't work for me. So basically, this one boils down to coffee and hot chocolate together. No thanks. Last up, we had the dessert, which was the Any Nut Nut Brittle. I made peanut brittle, and I'm actually very happy with how this turned out. It turned out to be really good. I'm still kind of snacking on it a little bit as well. So again, you can use any kind of nut in the Any Nut Nut Brittle, whether you want to do like a peanut brittle like I did, maybe a walnut brittle is more your speed, almond brittle. You can probably use almost any nut you can think of in there. But yeah, so very happy with how that recipe turned out. No AMA questions for the month. As a reminder, and I know you're a regular on this, Jester, but in case anybody's new to the channel, the way you leave an AMA question on the channel, or for the channel, is in the comments of any video between now and the next recap. Leave a comment in the question, leave a comment in the video, leave your question in the comments of the video with an AMA tag so I'll know it's for this segment, and as long as it's not too personal, I will answer it. As for what I deem to be too personal, just use some common sense. If you wouldn't want it asked of you, don't ask it of me. That's kind of the soft guideline I give to people in terms of, okay, how do we determine if a question is too personal or not? So that's it for AMA. We didn't have any special topics I wanted to talk about this month, so let's talk about what's coming in December. December is home to what I call the Advent of the Phoenix, inspired by the classic Advent season and Advent calendars. This will be a tradition that will continue. I started this last year, that we're going to crack an Advent calendar on the channel this year as well. So we're cracking open another Dicebox Advent calendar. So the way this will work is for the first video of the day, which will usually be the early morning video, we'll actually crack open the entry for the Advent calendar for the day. So we'll see what that's going to get up to for us. That's my yearly content explosion on the channel in December, where I play a whole ton of games. I'm not going to talk about absolutely everything coming up because there's way too much coming on the channel. But we'll talk about the highlights. Sundays will, of course, feature Christmas in Arkham, as I'll be playing Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, continuing that campaign against Chibney Gudath, as Jester and I are up 1-0 in the campaign. So I'll be looking to get the win locked up with our team of Jacqueline Fine, Agnes Baker, Leo Anderson, and Bob Jenkins. We'll be trying to get the win in Christmas in Arkham this year. We'll try to get that locked up before we go into Elder Sign the next week. In addition to that, we will also be playing Arkham Horror, the role-playing game, and we'll be playing a round of APA Golf. The other non-Sunday game I want to highlight, though, that will be coming to the channel is Payoff Pitch Baseball. We're going to spend our Saturdays on the baseball diamond in Payoff Pitch Baseball, and this will culminate in a visit to Olympic Stadium the day after Christmas in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, as we will feature the 2001 demo game between the Detroit Tigers and the Montreal Expos. If you're wondering if you're thinking that team seems random, if you're a regular on the channel, you should realize that that's not a random game selection, as Dave's Tabletop Gaming stops by. I'm just explaining the rationale for why the 2001 demo game for my replay, is going to feature the Detroit Tigers and the Montreal Expos. And the reason for that is because that was the World Series from my 1985 season replay that I did earlier this year. As for Mystical Munchies this year is going to take us to the world of the Godfather movies, as we'll be cooking out of the Corleone family cookbook. This was a cookbook I got at Gen Con earlier this year. We'll be cooking ciabatta, fettuccine alfredo, shrimp scampi, and olive oil and orange cake. We'll also continue with the extra December Mystical Munchies as we make, I'm debating what the recipe is going to be. Right now, I've got it penciled in to be Italian rum cake, but I've got a few recipes that I'm looking at. And Dave and Jester trying to recruit Dave to come play on Sunday morning because he can't make it. Well, if you're willing to, Dave, I'd be happy to have you on the channel for Arkham 2nd Edition to continue Christmas in Arkham. The only problem is If you know my Sunday morning schedule, you know that's going to be that's an early video that I start with for that. But I'm rambling on that a little bit, so let's go ahead and wrap this video up. The advent of the Phoenix will begin tomorrow, as we're playing the first of many games in December. We'll have a brand new game on the channel, as we're going to be playing Dice Throne by Roxley Games. Saturday we'll start with Mystical Munchies out of the Corleone family cookbook with the appetizer, Ciabatta. And next week, Christmas in Arkham will continue against Shubni Gudath, as we are playing Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, and I kind of figured that was going to be a bit early on that, so no worries, Dave. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care, everyone, and I'm sure Jester's going to be going live soon with his end-of-month show, so once you go live, Jester, let us know, and we'll stop over. Take care, and I will see you guys in the near future.